Critters 2: The Main Course is a 1988 American science fiction comedy horror film co-written by David Twohy and directed by Mick Garris. It is the second instalment in the Critters franchise. Serving as a direct sequel to Critters, the film stars Scott Grimes, Don Keith Opper and Terrence Mann in their reprising roles. The plot takes place 2 years after the first film, as a new batch of critter eggs begin to hatch and resume their carnivorous appetite upon the town once again. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the History of series, and today we are continuing the Crite Fest, the history of Critters Part 2, Critters 2, Kill More Crites. I know, yeah, Critters 2, yeah, we're doing that one, yeah. Before directing Critters 2, Garris worked as a screenwriter on the Steven Spielberg television series Amazing Stories. Garris initially turned down the offer to direct Critters 2, but later accepted, citing that he was a big fan of the first movie and wanted to make the sequel a much scarier film than the first. Critters 2 went through several iterations, with a script originally coming from David Twohy before undergoing a rewrite by Garris. The Chiodo brothers, who served as special effects artists on the first film, returned to create the titular monsters, creating over 50 puppets for the film. In an interview for the Scream Factory Blu-ray release, Mick Garris recalls the Hungry Heifer scene in particular taking days to shoot, and special effects supervisor Charles Chiodo further explained,
"We made a lot of specialty puppets for each individual cut and for each individual gag."
Shooting took place in Valencia, Santa Clarita, a part of Los Angeles metropolitan area, in 1987. Critters 2 was released on April 29th, 1988, produced on a $4 million budget. Unfortunately, it did not gross as much as the original film and struggled to break even, only grossing $3.8 million during its theatrical run in the United States. Critters 2 would be the last film in the franchise to be released theatrically. Regardless of its poor box office performance, Critters 2 has become a fan favourite within the fandom of Critters, and it's grown to be one of these really high regarded Easter holiday horror films that everyone seems to gravitate to. I think it's a very well balanced movie. It ups the ante in all the right ways, and it brings back characters that we connected with from the first film. It's a great balancing act of these quirky comedy moments and terrifyingly horrific horror moments. It's a great balance, and Critters 2 just delivers that in spades. Let's get on to those critters themselves, the Crites. What have they been up to, and what new little things do they have within their mythos? The Crites return, and they're as hungry as ever. In Critters 2, we're introduced to the critter hatchlings for the first time, as they devour Quigley's dog, Chili, and ultimately Quigley himself, in one of the film's more scarier scenes. The Crites retain the majority of their characteristics from the first film, such as their mouth full of teeth, and of course, their glowing red eyes. However, they appear to be larger in this sequel, and their fur covers their entire body, whereas in the first film, their bellies were exposed. The ability to grow is absent in Critters 2. We do get an array of differently sized Crites, however, they are nowhere near the giant size of the lead critter in the first film. There is some new lore introduced in Critters 2, such as the Crites' ability to come together and form a giant critter ball. This is foreshadowed earlier in the film, where 4 Crites join together to escape the Hungry Heifer diner, and then in the final act, the critters use this ability to survive a major explosion at the Polar Burger factory, foiling the town's plan to wipe them out for good. You can definitely say the Crites are indeed resourceful in this sequel. The critters are still portrayed as intelligent in Critters 2, still able to communicate between themselves, able to plan and plot, even going as far as cutting means of communication to the outside world. And overall being a terrifying nuisance to the town. However, they are still presented as stupid goofballs, and they're perhaps not as calculated killers as in the original film. The score for Critters 2 was composed by Nicholas Pike, and Douglas Fake returned to produce. The music once again really suits the sequel and presents a great balance between the dark orchestral tones and upbeat playfulness found in the film. The soundtrack was released on vinyl record by Voss Records in 1988, which included all the music heard in the film. The score was later re-released alongside the original film soundtrack on CD in 1993 by the Entrada label. The song most well known for the film is the Hungry Heifer jingle, written and performed by Mick Garris' wife Cynthia Garris. It's a happy, upbeat jingle that advertises the food of the Hungry Heifer, even though it's used far less than Power of the Night was in the first film. It's still one of those made-for-movie jingles you could not get out of your head. The heavy metal bondage badasses from outer space are back in Critters 2.
Kill more crates!
And this time they have a larger and more prominent role in the film. Being rejected spoils from a recent bounty, they are once again charged to hunt down and wipe out the Krites back on Earth. Terrence Mann returns as interstellar bounty hunter Ugg, accompanied once again by his partner Lee, this time being mostly portrayed by Roxanne Kilnahan in her most famous role. Once again, Ugg and Lee have shape-shifting abilities. Lee goes through multiple phases throughout the film, as you would expect,
Kill more crates!
almost transforming into Freddy Krueger in a particular memorable scene. Unfortunately, Charlie ruins this Easter egg before Lee can complete the transformation. Could you imagine Freddy Krueger as a bounty hunter? I mean, why they robbed us of that Easter egg, I have no idea. Imagine it, Freddy Krueger versus the critters in their little critter dreams. Wait, do critters dream? Do you dream? Just wondering, because I mean, if you do, you're pretty much screwed, because you know Freddy Krueger will have you. Ugg has retained the face of in-universe rockstar Johnny Steele and doesn't alter his appearance until it is discovered that Lee has been killed by the Krites, whereby Ugg goes into a meltdown, reverting back to his nothing-faced form. Ugg would later transform into a giant Krite in an attempt to lure the critters into the burger factory to be blown up. He would later take the visage of Charlie after it is believed that Charlie had sacrificed himself to save the town from the critters. The bounty hunters in this film are great characters with great chemistry, and they have a really cool look, and they provide a great comic relief in parts in this film. Great characters, some of the best in the franchise in my opinion. I love the bounty hunters, they are awesome. In conclusion, I think Critters 2 is a very good sequel to a movie that I absolutely adore. I know there's a lot of fans of this franchise that consider Critters 2 to be the best in the franchise. I'm going to disagree. I think it's a very good sequel, but I think I still wholeheartedly prefer the original Critters film. Critters 2 is a lot of fun though. It hams it up with the comedy. It hams it up with the ridiculous situations, and I love it. It's still a great film in my opinion. Whatever your opinions are of Critters 2, let me know down below. Thank you for joining me in this second edition of the history of Critters. Really do appreciate it. As always, if you like this video and you think that you might want to see more, maybe think about subscribing. Would really appreciate it. Give this video a like. It really helps me out. It helps the channel. It helps that channel get out there to the YouTube world. As always, I have been Jason, and this has been the history of Critters Part 2. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you later.
Kill more crates!